I've been working for 40 years. I've been in the healthcare, medical device, pharmaceutical space, and I've worked for just absolutely, for the most part, Brandon, some amazing leaders. Every one of my leaders that I've worked for, except for the first person that I worked for, went on to be a CEO or an officer in a public or private company. I've worked for amazing people, and I've been blessed in that regard. And the other thing, I learned about Warren Bennis's book on becoming a leader in 1989, and I bought the book. And when I buy books, Brandon, I actually write the date that I bought the book on the inside and my name. I don't know, I've always done that. And I bought the book right after it came out, and I was hooked. I loved his message. I loved the story in there. I loved Warren's approach. And years later, I got a chance to sit down one afternoon and spend an afternoon with Warren talking about leadership. And It just, that one moment became a pivot in my life where I really started focusing on leadership, and it became a passion of mine.
That's great. So, Jim, now if we fast forward to today, how do you spend your time today? How do you see leadership playing out in your world today?
Yeah, so Brandon, much like you in your background, although it's been most recent for me, I've put a plan together to get into the executive and professional coaching business. I wanted to sort of wind down my consulting business and move into coaching. And I got a certificate 3 years ago, and I've really been focusing most of my time on doing executive coaching. And so, leadership and mentoring is really an important part of that journey. And I think, I don't think we all know everything's turned upside down in the last couple of years. And if there have been and will continue to be some radical changes just in the way we work.
Yeah. So I want to, something you said, I want to go back in time for a minute, and then we're going to go into the future. So let's go back in time first. You made this subtle comment, Jim. It was subtle, but I heard it. You said, all my leaders that I've ever worked for, they all moved on to these, leadership roles, kind of senior officer roles in corporations and companies, except for the first one. So was there something interesting about or noteworthy about that first leader?
Well, there's a great question. And your counseling and coaching skills come through. You're obviously a great listener. Dave Gammon was my first boss, and he was the general manager or store manager of a grocery store out in Southern California, a small chain of stores called Stater Brothers. And that's just what he did for a living. That was for him as sort of his pinnacle. He just wanted to run the grocery store. I was the proverbial bag boy or box boy. But interestingly enough, Dave was definitely in the top 2 or 3 of the best leaders I've ever worked for, because Dave did everything. He never told people what to do. This is going back to the mid-'70s when everything was command and control, but Dave never told you what to do. He'd ask you what to do, and he always did it himself. If you needed to take, people's groceries out into the car and load the groceries in the car, he'd do it. If you needed to sweep up the cigarette butts in the parking lot, he'd do it. Break down cardboard, whatever it was, Dave was always doing everything. And nothing was beneath him, and everybody loved him because he was just one of us, and he was always working super hard when things got really busy.
See, Jim, that was not the answer I thought you were going to give me. I thought you were going to give me a story similar to mine where my first boss was not so effective, but I loved your story more. And here's why I loved it so much, because you just reminded every single one of us that great leadership has nothing to do with your title, and it can come in small ways.
Yeah,
you can have a huge impact on the people around you, the community you're in, and form future leaders sitting in a role that others might see as a small role, but it doesn't mean it's not impactful, and you can't make a change in others' lives.
Welding together practical insights and powerful conversations to forge world-class leaders. This is the Leadership Foundry podcast.